Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Parenting is Easy, Said No One Ever. I am your host, Hanani Abraham. I have the privilege to share with you a conversation that I had with Lisa Beth Thomas, who runs a not-for-profit based in Texas, in Austin, Texas, and now is going to be expanding more nationally and globally when it comes to the specific topic and the heavy topic of child exploitation and sexploitation. And I think this is a topic, I'll be honest, I've been avoiding to talk about because I think there's so many sensitivities we have to have for people that have been traumatized by people online and online predators. At the same time, also knowing that it's such an important topic, how to deal with it is something that I think I'm still struggling with, to be honest. And this is not the end of the conversation. This is just starting the conversation. And obviously, we invite and encourage anyone that has any questions, concerns, or comments, or maybe wants to share a story to please feel free to reach out to us. Our social medias are posted in the show notes. So you could email us at parentingiseasypodcast@gmail.com. Any questions that you have, or maybe a future guest, please feel free to reach out to us. But I hope you enjoyed this episode that I had the privilege of recording together with Lisa Beth Thomas on the concepts of child exploitation, how we can work as parents, what we can do as a community, with the school, with our devices. Thank you so much for joining us on this amazing episode, and I look forward to continued conversation. All right, so welcome back to Parenting is Easy, and I have an awesome guest today. We're talking to Lisa Beth Thomas on a very specific topic that I'm so glad we're finally having an opportunity to talk to someone about this. Lisa, I'm going to leave it up to you, but we're going to talk about child exploitation and online predators, and I think something that all of us parents can really learn more about. So can you give us just a little background of how you got into this, where you are today to this, and I guess you could say the overall, when you're talking to people, what are some of the main things that you or these are the things that we should be looking out for, so to speak?
Okay. Yeah. And thank you. I laughed out loud when I saw the heading of your podcast of Parenting is Easy, Says No One Ever, because I thought, oh, really? And then I read the tag and I went, oh, that's brilliant, because that is so true. And this is one of those things that fall into that, because the kids are online, and the background of how we got started with Not on Our Watch Texas, and in the next couple months, we're changing it to Not on Our Watch Global, because we're going to Florida, we're going to other places that we've already been asked to come and share this awareness message. So I was founding president of Texas Women in Business 14 years ago. And for the 10-year anniversary in 2020, they asked me if I would come back and be president for the 10th year. And I was like, well, that's really cool. What an honor. I would love to. So I said, sure. So I thought, what can we do? We're Texas Women in Business. What can we do to make an impact? We'll have a party. We'll drink champagne, to celebrate our 10 years. But what can we do? So I went to the governor's office, the Governor's Commission for Women, in Governor Abbott's office, and made that comment. And this was 4 years ago. They said, well, do you know that Texas is number one in human trafficking? And I was like,
in America?
What? In America.
Wow.
And I'm like, what do you mean Texas is number one in human trafficking? And my background, I know you've read my profile, is media and advertising and very connected to I used to work at the ABC station here in Austin. And I was like, why do we not know that? Well, now Texas is number two. But at the time, that's where we were. So I was like, why don't we know that? I don't understand why that is not on the news every single night, so that we can do something about it.
The awareness is not there publicly.
Right. And so people have said to me, well, you should go change a bill. You should go do. Why? Nobody even knows it's a problem. So, we wouldn't have any backing anyway. We have to make people aware. Well, like I said, that was 2020. When I went to the governor's office, that was in September of 2019. So Governor Abbott actually gave us the capital to launch this campaign June of 2020, hence COVID. And so it didn't happen. And then the next year it didn't happen. And then the next year we're coming out of all that craziness. But what came out of it was predators go where the kids are. The kids were and are online. And online exploitation and sextortion of our kids during COVID went up 567%.
Wow.
Because it was literally preying. It was a perfect preying ground for the predators, because that's where the kids were, whether they're doing homework or just messing around or gaming, whatever. So coming out of that, we were all like, well, hold on, we need to change our focus because this is the new white van. When we were kids, we were told to stay away from the white van, right? And don't go to the mall by yourself.
Don't take candy from strangers.
Right. And don't go see the puppy in the car. No, don't do any of that. And that's still all really good advice. Don't do any of that. But now the white van is here on a laptop or a gaming device. And so the predator goes to bed with the child every single night because the kids take
part of the pun, but yeah.
Yeah, literally. And so we then changed our focus from human trafficking, which is a $32 billion industry, which is huge. And there's many, many people focusing on that, but not a lot are focused on the online. And again, when we changed our focus for this, it's because 99.9% of the households have one of these or a laptop. Right. So we were like, okay, we need to get the message out to parents that this is something they need to be aware of. And for kids, what are the signs? What are the red flags that they need to look out for?
Okay, so you bring up two very good points, and I like the way you're separating it between parents and children. So let's first start with parents, because in most situations, parents are the ones that are buying these devices and giving them to their kids, and they could be used for the good. And we've seen over the past 4 years, specifically, whether it's schooling or attention seeking or skill building, how the online world can really be of benefit, and it also has its downfalls. So what are some things that parents can sort of look out for, and maybe even also, maybe it's a separate question you want to answer regarding the preventative care we can do as well, just to sort of make sure that what we are doing at home is we can go to sleep without having to think that someone else is in bed with our child.
Right. And that's a really great question, how you phrase that. I think a couple of the things that parents need to look out for, and we have panels. Let me just back up. We have panels with detectives and cybersecurity and Secret Service and the FBI. It's been pretty amazing. We have one coming up in Houston next week on the 25th. And listening to them, I mean, they're the ones that are in the trenches. And one of the things that they've said for parents is that every child's different. So whatever red flags that they're saying for parents to look out for, that may not be something their child deals with. So they say, the detectives say, assume that your child is being trafficked. Assume that your child is being groomed, because sometimes it takes up to 2 to 3 years for the groomer to break, to get in there and get the kid to respond. And at any given time, and I'm going to answer your question, I promise. Any given time, there is actively 500,000 predators, and they typically have.
And that's just here in America right now?
Yeah. And so they have 200 to 300 children they're watching. So it's not just like, I'm just watching this kid. They're watching several kids to see where their breaking point is or how they can get to them. And some of the signs or some of the things for parents is, I love Detective Brandy Poor shared, you teach kids about brushing their teeth. You should start talking about this at that point. He said, because, you see kids in the grocery cart, that are toddlers. I mean, these are in their hands to play games. Well, the predators know how to get to the games. That's the whole thing. They've figured out how to talk to the kids in the games, play with the kids in the games, again, befriend them. So they say, have the conversation immediately. Start talking about the safety. And couple of the things that are key is, one is, let your child know that no matter what, you have their back. No matter what, you are in this together 24/7. If somebody reaches out, if you've sent a nude photo and you're like, oh I sent it to my boyfriend, but now it's out here, come to me. I will help you. And I love what the detectives say. And when they do come to you, don't lose your mind, because a lot of times we would be like, what? I told you not to do. Right. They said, the minute you do that, you're going to lose them. So be okay. We've got this. Let's figure this out.
Like the bigger way you're talking about it, and I talked about this, I guess, in my office as a psychotherapist, but also on the podcast, is we want to create a world with our kids where it's not, I can't wait, I can't have my parents find out about that too. I can't wait to tell my parents.
Right.
And we want to foster that type of relationship. And that's only going to happen if we allow them, we give them permission, we give them the reason for them to want to come, that they always feel like our arms are open for them to come to run into, whether they're 8 months old and just starting to walk, or 18 years old and having some issues with someone online, or some social thing in school. And
Right.
it's up to us to go ahead and create that. So on that topic, I know there's so many different parts over here though that we can sort of go with. And I know I'm like,
Yeah.
it sounds funny using this, but like I'm like a kid in a candy store in this topic, because this topic, and I say that quote specifically because Jonathan Haidt, who just wrote a book on the anxiety that has been caused because of the phone and the online and specifically the social media world, he has a quote talking about like candy, and I actually have it open over here, saying like smartphones are like junk food for children. Adults can handle it fine from time to time, but it's overstimulating for children, and they want more and more of it in a certain way. And I think that's what's happening online right now, which I think is something that we have to be aware of. It's not like, oh my God, let's get rid of cell phones. No, let's figure out how to use cell phones properly. Let's figure out how to use tablets properly.
Right.
Exactly. So let's talk about preventative care, or things parents can do at home to sort of make sure that there are certain things that, you know what, I know my kid's not going to do this because I know I have this type of filter, this type of app, this type of shutdown services on devices. I'm curious regarding guardians that you might talk to parents about, regarding how to go about dealing with the online/social media world that can be a benefit for these type of situations.
Well, and I love that you brought that up about social media. And I saw this morning what, of course, the Surgeon General is talking about, putting warnings on.
I saw that. I love that. I love that.
I know. And I'm trying to figure out how would that, is it every time I go on Facebook, a notice comes? I don't know how they're going to make that happen, but I was like, we're trying. And then the report was that on an average, children spend 4 hours a day on their device.
I believe that number is wrong. I believe it has to be more. I feel that's a very low number. Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, because I mean, you see kids even when they're out to dinner with their parents, or you're doing something, they're on their phones. They're constantly. Well, and I love what you said about keeping your arms open no matter what, whether they're 8 months or 18 years old. And this woman whose daughter committed suicide by sextortion, and sextortion is when a child is befriended by someone online, and then the other person asks for a nude photo or video. They send it, the child sends it, thinking that it's a friend or someone that they know. And then it comes back immediately. Okay, now you owe us $200. Now you owe us $1,000. We're going to sell this, or we're going to show it to all your friends. That's sextortion. Well, this mom, her daughter committed suicide. And I was going to say, it's usually boys that are hit up for sextortion, but that does not eliminate girls, because it happens to girls too, but the majority swings to guys. But what she said, going back to our conversation, was, as parents, we need to say, don't. But if you do, come to me. I've got your back. I loved that. I read that she said that, and that was her takeaway, because she kept saying to her daughter, don't. Well, when the daughter did, then, and I don't know if this is true for this woman's case, but I'm assuming this is where it came from, but I don't want to put words in her mouth. So let's just say, again, if the child committed suicide and was afraid to go to the parents because they'd done a nude photo or have done something. So don't. But if you do, come to me. I got your back. Right. We're in this together.
Yeah, and not to, that I think that story, is very powerful, and coming from a mother that's been through it. I'm sure that's something that unfortunately is more common than we think, than the media actually says happens. I could attest to situations in my office dealing with teenagers of boys, like you were saying, that have been sextorted, and I think a lot of them being able to deal with it in a level-headed way had to do with having a good relationship with the parents. And the cases that I'm thinking of specifically that have happened over the past 6 to 8 months specifically have to do with each one of those teenage boys having a healthy relationship, a really good relationship with their parents, at least one of the parents, and therefore that really helped the situation where they don't get over their head and thinking like this is the end of the world, and God forbid, they're having to do something that could be life-changing for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So, I
Yeah.
think that's really important to be able to go ahead and have that. And back to what Jonathan Haidt, he says not to have before 16, children should not be having social media whatsoever, and let them go through the beginning stages of puberty on their own with their own physical friends,
Right.
and not having the online world. I personally, not that I can't disagree with him, because I think he's much smarter man than I am, but I would say 18. I would say there should be a Surgeon General's warning. The same way, if you want to buy a pack of nicotine cigarettes in California, there's a picture of a cancerous lung on the actual pack. I think in some places in Europe as well.
Wow.
I think there's that famous organization here in America that does they go around to telling kids not to text and drive, and they set up a whole gory scene in front of the school. I remember reading about this from Leonard Sachs. He talks about how schools would bring them in. It's a non-for-profit. I forget the name of it. And they show a very gory scene of a car crashed and limbs all over the place because someone was texting "okay" to their mother. And I think it's brutal in some ways, but sometimes it sends a message home. And I wish there was some way to have, when we come to this discussion, to have it out there where kids can realize, yes, let's talk about this. Let's have a discussion about this. Let's make sure that everyone knows. The first thing that comes to mind, at least what I've told parents in my office, is that tell your kids they can have social media, but they're only allowed to follow and befriend people that they've met in person at least once. And unfortunately, the problem with that is you have let's say influencers and celebrities that you're never gonna meet. You have sports players you're never gonna meet. Well, I would say that's part of it. Maybe we can watch them on television, we can watch them, online or other places. But regarding who we're following, who we're chatting with, only allowed to chat with people that we actually have met. And that would be the line that I would sort of have. So if that's, I'm curious regarding other guidelines that parents can sort of put out there. Like, what do you guys talk about, and what are some of the things that parents can sort of be on top of?
Well, one is sharing the red flags with their kids. It's letting them know. And if somebody asks you for a nude photo, no. Even if it's a boyfriend or girlfriend, no. And here's the crazy statistic that 34% of all 13 and 14-year-old kids thinks it's normal to send or share a nude photo. 34%. I mean, so that's a third of your audience. Right now, their kids are like, yeah, what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is you don't know where it's going to end up. You don't know what's going to happen. Now, so parents who are listening, if your child comes to you or you know that they've done this, you can go online to Take It Down. I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to say it's on the on NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. There is a link called Take It Down, and you can get down a nude photo within 24 hours. So, or it takes about 24 hours to get it going, but it's anonymous, and it can happen. So there is a solution for that. But again, the first thing is don't send. And if you're on social media, if you are on your cell phone and someone asks for that, one of the things we recommend is ask to go to FaceTime, because FaceTime does not lie. So if the 15-year-old kid says, I don't know how to do that, delete, hang up, because that's not a kid. And so that I love that piece of advice. If they want to talk to you about sex, if they ask personal questions, parents need to let their kids do not give any personal information, not where you go to school, not what kind of car you drive. I had a friend of mine who shared with me that her daughter she thought a 16-year-old boy their home address. And the middle of the night, my friend woke up and knew something was wrong. And she went to her daughter's room and she was gone. They were able to get her back. She's safe. She's fine. But it wasn't a 16-year-old boy. It was a 55-year-old man. So when she ran out the car to meet him, thinking, yay, this is going to be fun, it was not fun. So that would be main thing, is not to give personal information. If somebody online offers to give their children money or drugs or alcohol or tickets, or I can help you with that job, anything like that is also a major red flag. So, and if they're gaming to and someone says, hey, let's go into a personal private chat room. No, don't. So it's just more of conversations that the parents need to have. Some parents that we've met with put a basket outside their bedroom door, and at bedtime, the kids drop their phones in the basket and they take the phone in the bedroom with them. Kids get mad. They get this, and we've had parents say, yeah, but it's privacy. It's like reading a diary. No, it's not. It's not that you don't trust your children. It's you don't trust who's on the other side of that. And especially at night, we're sleepy. We've all done those late night, man, I wish I shouldn't have said that text, because we're sleepy, we're groggy. If you're an adult, you may have had a glass of wine. It's
so
again.
I think there are so many things we can sort of do more of. But I want to point out, and we're going to put this in the show notes, but it's the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the NCMEC, where people can go, and I think that's a really, really helpful resource that people can have over here. You mentioned before regarding schools and going to school, and I'm curious if you could talk a minute or two about the role of schools and communities when it comes to this topic. Where can you see the benefits from schools getting involved, being on top of things in a certain way, talking about educating in a certain way, and also communities in itself? And what are some of the things that parents can bring to either schools, school committees, or communities to sort of help bring this topic to be more prevalent and out there?
Well, that's a really great point, because I think a lot of folks put everything on the school, saying, well, the school should raise my kids, the school should talk about that. It's not. It's got to be word team.
No one that listens to this podcast, because I can tell you that, because the concept that we talk about in this, and I'm so sorry for interrupting you, but it's your job to educate your child, and it's a school's job to help you.
There you go.
And
well, then we're on the same page.
that we talk about a lot of here. But you continue regarding the roles that they play.
So it's got to be mutual. We've got a couple schools, a school up in Liberty Hill, Texas, that the superintendent heard us speak, came to an event, and he was like, I want this in our schools. How can I do it? How can I bring these and make it aware? And we're talking to the mayor of Liberty Hill, and we're talking about doing a program at the exact same time, one for parents and one for children in middle school. And so in one area of the school would be the parents, the other, and so it would be conversations to that age group, and they get out at the exact same time. So when they get in the car, they have something to talk. What did you learn? What did I learn? And they can come together. And we thought that would be just a great idea. And when NCMEC, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC, have all kinds of cheat sheets and videos that parents can watch. Parents can sit down with their kids and watch. They're all per, like Kid Smart is to elementary school, and then Net Smarts, and it goes up to the different age groups. And we at Not on Our Watch, we're not recreating any training. We don't need to. The best of the best is out there. We're making people aware and pointing to where they need to go so they can make a difference with their kids.
You're playing matchmaker.
And there you go. Yeah. Well, and you brought up mental health earlier. I was reading the other day that, so when parents say to me, and I've had this many, 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 many times. Well, first of all, when I share that Texas was number one, not number two, or I talk about the stats, only 2 people in like 4 years have said, I know. Everybody else went, there's a problem? Wait, what? And again, how can we fix it? And the 2 that said, I know, were survivors. But even when we do these panel discussions, or I'm on the media or wherever we are, parents will say, not my child. I have a really good child. They wouldn't do that. Or they're not a runaway. Or again, it's not them. It's who's out there reaching out to them. And the stat I read is that 1 out of 5 children last year said they were contacted or solicited by a predator online.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Out of 5. So it is your child.
So,
it is your child, or a child that you love, a neighbor's child, a grandchild, a niece or nephew is being contacted. And the mental health of that is, once they've been solicited and violated, that thing of, violation, they're 4 times more likely to dabble in drug use, thoughts of suicide, PTSD, anxiety, all the
Yeah.
things you deal with, right?
Yeah.
And it's coming at them from all directions. So it is creating rules and regulations in your home. I love one of the FBI agents said, if we could just go back to when kids only got flip phones, let's say during their high school, middle, because they can't get on social media, but it's literally to text mom and dad saying the game's over, come pick me up. If we have to have a
Right.
way to communicate.
Sure.
And I was like, that's not a bad idea.
That's actually something I feel very fortunate where I live here in Connecticut to be part of a community that is a big fan of that. And I tell you, for example, the local girls' high school, we have separate boys and girls' high schools here, and the girls' high school, 9th to 10th grade, they're allowed to have phones. The school makes them get phones, but you're only allowed to get the phone from a certain service. And there's no texting, no camera, no nothing. There's no web service. And then when you're a junior, are you allowed to get texting on your phone? And throughout high
Wow.
school, it's the norm to have just a phone that has just texting. And I think I bring that up because I think that the
That's
concept
brilliant.
of
Yeah.
community is so important in this, and societal norms are really shape who we are as a family, and for teenagers, identity is the most important thing in the world. And if they're going to feel not a part of everyone else because everyone else has it, then that's like one of the best arguments that like a teenager can have. And as parents, we have to oblige in a certain way. But when we have the community backing behind us, that allows us to sort of say, hey, no, that's not true. Not everyone. And maybe one girl in your class that has it, but no one else does. And I know that because the school has a rule, and then they make it. There has to be a certain way of having phones, having communication, having texting at a certain age. And that's, again, one of the things that Jonathan Hay talks about as well, is that there should be no phones allowed in school. When they're in school, they have to be in school. And there is no phones whatsoever. I know there are teachers that had tried to have some sort of, one of those over-the-door shoe racks where they make kids put their phones in as they go into the classroom, and some of them get called out of it because, like, I guess, emergencies and stuff by other parents. But at the same time, they make the news because like it's the anomaly, unfortunately, where the teachers are doing that, and that's something that we as parents can sort of go to schools and say, hey, let's make a rule that there are no phones, and that every single period they're allowed to take the phone, go to the next classroom, maybe leave it in their locker or their homeroom, but they have to leave it there, and they can't bring it around with them because that has a lot to do with it. There's an author who I'm a really big fan of. I've read most of his books. Leonard Sachs, who is a PhD MD. I think he's based in Washington, D.C. area. He's written Boys Adrift, was the first book that really comes to mind right now. But he talks about the concept of community as well. And I think he writes about a community, it might be in the northern part of Connecticut, actually, that all the parents got together. And even without the school, they all said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have a certain way of doing things. And when we do it together, that's how we get to a place of being able to be in control of it. I'm curious to hear from you. And when you live in larger cities, Austin is just a little bit bigger than the city that I live in. I'm curious, how can we foster that type of the community to help bring about a new societal norm where it's not something that is, my kid's going to feel left out, so I have to get them the social media. I have to have, a smartphone that's unfiltered. How can we create that? How can we do that at home in a way where no, this is the norm. The norm is not to have it. That's the new cool thing. And how can parents sort of take a step forward in this?
I think what you guys are doing is amazing. And I used to live in Connecticut, so I love Connecticut. I miss it. I was in row 8 in the Darien area. Loved it.
Amazing.
I was while you were talking, I pulled up because somebody had sent me, and I was looking. A teacher did all he could to keep kids off phones. He's quitting in frustration. This teacher taught high school biology for 11 years. He says smartphones stole his students' attention and sapped their motivation, so he quit. And that's just what we were talking about. They have it in there. So I think it is truly conversations. It's the old saying of it takes a village. It really does, because you are absolutely right. If my grandchild is the only one that's not, there's going to be resentment, anger, and they're going to find a way. There was down in the Rio Grande Valley here in Texas, this girl was grounded from her phones, her laptop, her gaming. She was in trouble. She couldn't get anything. She figured out how to get online at school. When she was at school, she got groomed and she got taken. but the schools had access to it all. So it goes back to what you're saying. It's block it. Block all social media, and the bad news is, they can get online at school and look at porn. They can go to Pornhub. They can go wherever they want. It's blocking those sites and coming together, as you're saying, as a community, coming together as your circle of friends. Let's say that your children have 5 buddies that hang out together. Well, the parents come together and say, what can we do so that we're a united front to this tribe of friends, this group. So, and I think it starts with that community, and then it's getting to the schools. It's, like I said, Liberty Hill, we received a proclamation. They declared it, not on our watch day. And Liberty Hill, Rio Grande Valley, the DA sent out to all his constituents, we are backing not on our watch. We are coming together as a community in Spanish and in English to make this happen. So but again, it's getting that awareness, because some parents don't even know it's an issue. So first of all, we have to make sure everybody knows it's an issue.
100%. I would even add one more thing to this is yes, there's an issue regarding the children, and there has to be a certain level of filtering and obviously knowledge regarding what's out there. But it also comes back onto us. The way I talk about it in my room is making a U-turn. And we have to be in a place where we're not constantly on our phones or on social media or making comments about, oh my God, I can't believe she said this about blank. Because kids do look at our behaviors and they see exactly what it is that we're doing. And we could put the best filters in the world, but if we're going to do certain things, they're eventually going to want to copy that in some way. And it goes without saying that we have to be in a place to be able to want to do these things. And I think we've talked a little bit about that, whether it's having a basket in the room, or some people will have to leave it downstairs, or the internet is shut off in the home, or there's a parental control on the devices that say, well, okay, 10 p.m. the only thing that works is your MP3 player, or some parents have even gone as far and I met them recently where I thought it was really awesome, where they went to a thrift store and bought a whole bunch of cassettes and a Walkman and gave that to their kid to have it at bedtime, because they said the kid needed music. I'm not telling everyone to go ahead and do that. I mean, it would be pretty cool if they came back in style, but I think the concept of being able to say, well, you want your music? Okay, you don't need your phone for the music. I think that also teaches the concept of not to be dependent on it, which is obviously something we want. But I'm curious, as we sort of look ahead over here, we talk about like future direction, both from the technological point of view, but also policy point of view. Are there certain things that we can, as parents, sort of look forward to, and maybe even try to push for when it comes to making sure that sextortion and online child exploitation is something that we can try to nip in the bud as soon, as fast, and as hard as possible?
Yeah. No, I would say, first of all, is spread the awareness. And we say this all the time, follow Not on Our Watch social media, Not on Our Watch Texas social media, post, share with your friends, share with your kids. With the amount of people that talk to each other, the first line of defense is telling people so they're aware, so they can do something about it. They can have that conversation with the child. Look for, as things come across the media, like right now, the warning labels. There's bills that are being passed that they're talking about. I know they're doing it in Texas, and I'm not sure where else they're doing it, but right now it's like when you get a phone, you have to turn everything on. It doesn't come automatically on, and you have to figure out how to turn and block things. They're now creating a bill that it's all going to be off, and the parent has the control of what the child can get into. So it's being aware of what's out there and helping pass bills, writing your senator, signing a petition, whatever, to make sure these things get passed. But the biggest thing that you can do in your house is to have that conversation and not be afraid of it. We talk about compromise, and I know I think you would agree. I shouldn't say I know you would agree, but I think you would agree that what we say to parents is also compromise. Say, okay, this is what I'm hearing that's going out there, and you may have been solicited by somebody, and this is how they get to you. And especially, and I'm jumping off that real quick, as a 13 or 14-year-old girl, I was, oh my God, I was the tallest. I was gangly. I wasn't the prettiest girl. My best friend was the prettiest girl in the school, Kelly, not me. And if somebody would have paid attention to me, I would have been all over it. I would have wanted that attention. So online, you can see where kids are like, when someone's grooming them, I think you're beautiful. What do you mean you need to lose weight? Oh my God, I think you're you know, kids are like, whoa, feed me, give me.
Right. We're all like that.
We're all like that. And that's the friend of mine that said her daughter was missing in the middle of the night. She said, I feel like I'm 2 steps behind the predator at all times. And she said she wanted validation from somebody else besides mom and dad. And I got that. I was like, I did too. I completely get that. So where I was going with that is that compromise is a great thing to keep in mind. Rather than going to your children, and again, this comes from Nick Mick and all the detectives we've met with, if you go in and go, all right, starting tonight, you're not going to have your phone until blah, blah, blah. Well, that's immediately anger, frustration, offense, defense, parent, child. And they will find a workaround. They will find a way to get to their phone. Instead, go, okay, these are the things I'm hearing. These are the stats. These are the things I'm worried about happening to you because somebody out there is a bad guy. I trust you, but they're really good. They're very manipulative. So let's compromise. Let's come up with some rules and safety that we come up together. We come together and compromise, because then it's their idea as well.
Right. I love that.
They helped create that.
Right. In the words of Jerry Maguire, like, help me help you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what we want over here. So, Lisa Beth, there are so many more places where I can go with this. I can talk to you for an hour or two. As I want to be mindful of your time, but I think another very, very big question, and maybe personally how I feel about this, but also I guess from my point of view on what I deal with in my office. We talked about the society, we talked about the school aspect of things, but I think another very, very big part of this is also the family dynamics, whether it's the insular home or the greater family involving aunts and uncles, cousins, and grandparents. I'm curious if there's a specific role that they play in this, or that the larger family dynamics play in this that is specific, maybe like a little more of a niche, so to speak, when it comes to the awareness. And if you could talk about that for a second over here.
I think it's imperative that the parents share what the rules are. The parents share what they're doing in their household and the support they need from the extended family. And again, it's what we were talking about earlier. It's the village. Because if I say no, or I say after 9 o'clock, the phone goes in the basket, you can watch TV, you can watch a movie, but not, the computers are out, you can do whatever you want. But then they go to Nana's house and Nana says, oh, come on, you're at Nana's house. You can come on.
Right.
Sorry, Nana. So and Nana, I didn't mean to sound like Nana has been smoking for 20 years. Sorry about that. But right. I didn't sound like that. But it's consistent, because then otherwise they're going to find loopholes. And again, with other parents of friends, people, you've got friends that your kids consistently spend the night. This is what we do in our house. I would love it if you would honor that when they're at your house, that you can make it consistent across the board. That's so important. And you brought up earlier, kids do what we do, right? They do. We may say don't swear, and then somebody cuts us off and we're like, and they're like, oh, wait, okay, I guess we can. So
mom can.
And one day, I was notorious I had an ad agency for 20 years. So I was always on my phone, always looking to see if clients were responding, what was going on. And one day I was standing at the kitchen counter and my kids were in the kitchen doing something. And I said to my son, and I'm on my phone, I said, so how was your day today? And as he started to answer, I picked up my phone and I started looking at my phone. And he said, it was a pretty good day. I killed somebody. And I said, oh, really? Awesome. Was that at school? I'm not kidding. And he was like, yeah. He goes, I took him out at school. I put him in my trunk. And I went, okay. And what are you doing tomorrow? And he goes, probably going to bury him. I was like, oh, man. And then all of a sudden he goes, Mom. And I was like, what? And they're all like, what? And then I realized. And so I made a point.
Whoa.
And so when they catch me not listening, they go, murder. Wow.
You're never going to forget that one. There's a saying I remember, like, I don't remember exactly how it goes, but sort of like, from the people I learn the most from are the people that I'm closest to and around. And even though I'm supposed to be the teacher for them, i.e., our children, sometimes the most we learn is from them.
Right.
So I think that they're really
Yeah.
shows the concept of, that I'm sure that lesson and the word murder means a whole different meaning to you than it does
But sometimes I'm
to most
gonna,
other
if you don't
people.
leave me alone.
Yeah, that's a very good point over
Yeah.
here. We like finishing off over here with a few rapid fire questions. But before we get there, I'm curious. Well, first, if you could just tell us where people can find you, where they can
Sure.
find more about what you're about. I know you talked about it a little bit, but maybe talk a little bit about that just for a second, just so
Sure.
people can find a little bit about you. And if there's any last parting one or two sentences regarding this topic that we didn't talk about that you feel might be important for
Okay.
us to talk about, I want to give you the mic for this.
Thank you. And I apologize that I go from dark to light. We're getting storms here in Texas, and so the clouds are coming, the clouds are going, and so anyway, we want the rain, but we don't. So yes, you can find us on notonourwatchtx.org, and again, that's going to be changing soon. But for Nick, and we have the resources for NICMIC. We have all those things that people can find.
Amazing.
They can see where we're going to be. Again, we're going to be in Houston next week on the 25th, and we're going to have a panel of detectives and cybersecurity. It's going to be amazing. So that's the easiest way to reach out. And if someone's got a school, or they want us to come speak, or they want to do an online Zoom with the group, or have us meet with the group, just reach out, because we'll be ecstatic to come and help. And, we have Facebook, we have LinkedIn, we have all that. So anybody can reach out. And that's how actually we did a panel down in Rio Grande Valley. They saw our posts and reached out to us from there. So we'd love to.
Amazing. See, so as we're ending off over here, we realize there's a good thing that we can use social media for. So It's not all bad. It's just knowing how to deal with it.
Correct.
Sort of like we're saying, candy could be awesome and good as long as we have it in moderation.
Yes.
So it's knowing how to deal with it. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I'm taking from today. Lisa Beth, this has been absolutely amazing. I have so many more questions I want to talk to you about, but maybe we'll try to make another time to speak over here as we sort of finish up. And sort of going a little light over here with rapid fire questions. I'm curious if you can mention any place where people can get some more guidance, whether it's a book, YouTube video, podcast, or someone to listen to on this topic, or maybe on the topic of parenting in general, that you might recommend someone to look for.
A couple things. Brian Montgomery on YouTube has an incredible video, and his son was a victim of sextortion. But the way he talks about it, and the way he talks about having a 16-year-old boy, is just beautiful. So I would recommend going to YouTube, listen to Brian Montgomery. He's an amazing father, and sharing this boy's message. Deborah Berry has The Tech Trap, which is a really interesting book. Her daughter at the age of 10 got pulled in and to the dark side of the web and the dark side of grooming for 2 to 3 years, and she didn't know it. And she finally, and this is how she broke her daughter and got her out of that lifestyle. So some really good stuff. And again, Not on Our Watch TX, or on National Center of Missing Exploited Children, there's all kinds of information. So if a parent goes, wow, I really want a cheat sheet. I want to know how to talk to my kids. There's scripts, there's conversations, there's videos, all available. All available.
Okay. Yeah. And that's and we will try to post as many of the show notes links in our show notes.
Yeah.
Is there a piece of worst parenting advice that you ever got? What would that be?
That I ever got? The worst parenting. I don't know. It's from grandparents, or I can't even. Worst piece of parenting advice. Oh, I think one of my aunts or uncles, somebody somewhere along the line said, "Oh, don't worry about it. They'll figure it out. The kids will figure it out." Yeah, and it's like, no.
Yeah, right.
No,
okay.
No. Yeah, and
that's for sure.
And I go back to but that's why we're called parents. We're supposed to help our kids. We're supposed to teach our kids.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But last question for you over here: if you could have an everyday mundane superpower as a parent to help out with your parenting, what would that be?
To get rid of fear. And what I mean by that is fear of talking to my child, fear of being myself and authentic, fear of what masks we wear and are afraid to take off. I would want to share with my kids how important it is to be able to not be afraid to talk,
No.
but to be true to who they are, and not to be afraid to show yourself as your flaws, your good and your bad. I went through a really nasty divorce, and my kids saw the highs and lows of it. And when I stopped blaming everybody else, and started taking responsibility for my role and all of my actions and all what happened, I went from victim to victor. I was able to, and my kids saw that. They saw me go from feeling sorry for myself and poor me to wait, okay, what was my role in this? And then now they see that, and that you can start parenting at any time. If someone says, oh, it's too late, my kid's 28 years old. No, it's not.
Never. It's never, ever too late.
Never too late.
Well, Lisa, this has been absolutely amazing. I really, really appreciate your time, and I look forward to future communication.